Maddie Matheson back at it again with a new episode of the Bedtime podcast. As always, I'm joined by Babby.
Eh,
Eh, we have a slam dunk episode, as always. Week 5, week 5 of the Simian Summer Marathon continues with a review of Iron Monkey, but that'll be coming a little later. We're also going to be talking about The Bear. With spoilers. I think we both finished it. I assume
mhm.
we would have to talk about it. Um, so we'll be doing that. Other than that, there's like no news. The biggest news already dropped last week, so it's pretty much just all downhill from here. So that's, I guess, fortunate and unfortunate at the same time. We're living in an embarrassment of riches, as they say. But
Indeed.
I guess without further ado, we can talk about The Bear, season 3. Um, Maybe we'll start with a little background. Our background of The Bear. I think it was my favorite show of last year. I think it was your number 2, uh, closely following
Yes,
behind Succession. So
very closely.
suffice to say, we are both very big fans of The Bear, the show. And I don't know if you went in knowing that people were disappointed with the third season. I went in knowing that people were disappointed with the third season. Um,
I think we started it right away, so I didn't think there was really
okay.
any expectation. I knew that there was people that were like already finished with it and are like, "What was that?" But I don't trust any person that runs through it an entire day and that has an opinion right away. So
That is a good point. Um, I had a conversation with a real life friend of mine that our views pretty much align pretty closely when it comes to TV. She was also a very, very big fan of Succession. And so she was watching The Bear around the same time. Kind of did what we did, where it was like, oh, which one do I watch first? Or actually, I think you actually got to The Bear later than I did. Um,
I did, yeah.
at least she did what I did, was juggling those two shows. And yeah, and then we talked and she had seen the whole show. I think she might have set aside like a couple of days, she like set aside a weekend and was like, I'm going to finish the season by the end of the weekend. And she was disappointed in it. And so I went in knowing that, and I'm like, well, that's unfortunate. I'm probably not going to like this season. But I actually really liked this season. I don't think it's as good as season 2, but season 2 is a very, very warm spot in my heart. Has maybe 2 of the best episodes of television, in my opinion. And I mean, it doesn't quite compare to that, but I thought it was really good. What did you think?
I agree. It's very different, and I think pacing it out and not watching it more like throughout the just like binging it or whatever, I think that helped.
Yes.
Um, and I think just understanding what this season is about, I think people were not really hearing what the show wanted to say this season.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're used to chaos and yelling and
Right.
fast-paced action scenes in a kitchen and chaos, and this season was that, but it was in a very different angle. Um, and it was definitely more, I don't want to say meditative, but it was a lot more low key in parts of it. But
Sure.
there were points where the intensity got up to a point
Yeah.
where I'm like, this is peak the bear, and it wasn't even in the kitchen most of the time. So
That's true. That is true. I mean, you say it was more meditative. It definitely didn't start that way. I think the first 3,
no,
not even just like the second and the third episode were so stressful because it's like them running the restaurant, and you can tell that Carmi doesn't really know what he's doing. He's trying a lot of things and is just unsuccessful. And it's basically just kind of breaking the restaurant. And so watching that was horrible. But I will say, yeah, the first episode definitely is meditative, and I think is
Mhm.
maybe one of the best first episodes in like an ongoing season like this. Like it perfectly set up where the season was going to go. Um, Even though I think off rip, I was not like a huge fan of it. Like it was obviously very well done. I think the first episode, which is called Tomorrow, I really thought it was well done. Maybe one of the best shot episodes of The Bear. Um,
Mhm.
but I was just like, is that really needed? Like, what is the point? And I think that maybe is the writer in me kind of being like, okay, why, what is being conveyed in this episode? What is the information that we as an audience are supposed to take away from it? And I was just like, this is a lot of what we've already seen. Like, it almost feels like a clip show episode where we're seeing a lot of what we already know. And yeah, there's a lot of that, but we're also getting context, a lot more of him like before working at the beef, him as like just starting as a professional chef. Um, but I was but in retrospect, I think that episode is kind of brilliant because we're like completely getting in his headspace, to where like I've seen criticisms and even my friend was like, I don't understand why Carmi is stressing out so much about a Michelin star. Like, wasn't the whole last season about him like trying to connect with people and like trying to break away from that? Why is this sudden shift happening? And I think if you really paid attention to the first episode, I think we kind of get why. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, what did you think of the first episode?
Yeah. I think the first episode was fantastic. I think just like it was a little bit of a recap, but at the same time, it's like throwing contextual pieces that people might not have connected lines with certain things before.
Sure.
Um, and just the process for like him going to like over in Europe and
Right.
all these different things, and like where he sent Marcus and all that, like that kind of process um, was really nice to see. And I think like it ties perfectly into like the last episode of the season where all that kind of like comes to a head.
Yeah.
Um, it's a very much in his head kind of season, and we don't actually see too much of him
No.
when it comes to that. Like he is buried in the kitchen most of this season, which I think is good. I
Yeah.
don't think we need more because like that was his goal this season, was just like get this thing to work and like try to get a star, even if it's like completely insane and annoying. Um, and I think it let character stories come out for other characters, because like I was not really that interested in Carmi this season except like the beginning and the end.
Yeah.
um and I don't think that was the point, was to like have him be the star again. But yeah, I enjoyed the first episode a lot. I think it was very much like, okay, this is a nice lead in to where we're going. I think it felt a little directionless for the first one or two, but then it
Yeah.
really got like its footing. So
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think to me, I think Carmi he's like an interesting piece, but he's not like my favorite character. I wouldn't say
no.
he's even in like the top 50% of like most interesting characters, even though he is like the
Hmm.
main protagonist. I mean, I think Sid is maybe my favorite. The amount of bullshit that she has to deal with is
Hmm.
honestly impressive that she puts up with it. I'm also like really come to love Richie, who I really was like
Yes.
not a huge fan of in the first season, but man, these last two seasons have really like really thrust him into like a position of like, man, he is like he's the protagonist. I care way more
Hmm.
about what's going on with Richie than what I care about with Carmi. I also love Marcus. I wish that he got a little bit more this season. I know that like
Me too.
he had the funeral episode and like that was great. Like his speech was just so sweet and like personal, which I think is what this show is like. It's at its best when it's showing like pure human moments. Like it does it in a way that I have not seen in another show, where
Hmm.
it makes these small interactions that you wouldn't even think of, but they just portray it on screen so perfectly. Um, I think of that, and also like I know we got like another deep dive episode on Tina. in napkins,
Yes.
which I think is funny that they're giving all of the deep dive episodes names of like stuff on a table. Because like forks
Mhm.
was in the last one, and that was Richie's, and now this one's napkins. But it doesn't feel like that's forced or anything. Like it's a motif, or it's like, oh, okay, it's another silverware episode or whatever. Like it fits. Um, but yeah, I really like Tina. I've always really liked Tina. I think her arc is interesting. I will say there's one line in Napkins that kind of throws me for a loop that I don't necessarily think fits her character in that moment. But maybe I don't know. Do you just want to talk about napkins? I feel like that's the next big standout
I think,
episode.
yeah, that is kind of the big standout episode, or at least the first hit.
Yes. Because that's the it's Tina's standalone episode. It's her before she started at the beef with Mikey and Richie and everyone. And it's a great showcase of I need to pull up her name of what's her name? Lisa Colon Zayas. She is like
Mhm.
phenomenal in it. Um, she's pretty much crying the entire time, and just keeping that up is honestly really impressive. But like we're seeing her like just like completely devastated, and like it captures that feeling of like looking for a job and like trying your hardest but feeling like a
Mhm.
failure. Like that feeling, I couldn't relate to it, but it is just like it's just a fact of life that this is what it feels like, and it's awful. But what I love about that episode is it shows Mikey in a context where it makes sense that people miss him so much, because that's maybe my one criticism of the episode, what's it called, 12 fishes or just fishes, the
Fishes,
Christmas
yeah.
episode. And it's not even really a criticism, because it shows Mikey in a context that a lot of people knew him towards the end, where like he was abusing drugs and was destructive. But after that episode, I was kind of like, oh, okay. I mean, like, but people talk about him so positively, like he was just this like ray of sunshine on people's lives, but like I didn't see it. Like we get glimpses of it in season 1, but like we don't get like a really long scene of him where it makes sense that people would miss him to the degree that people do. And I think that in Napkins, his conversation with Tina is just wonderful. I'm like, this guy is awesome. Like I understand that he's complex and that he has flaws and all of these things, but man, when he takes like a second to be there for someone, when like everyone else and Fack and Richie were like, "Oh, I don't know what to do. Maybe if we just ignore it, it'll just go away." But Mikey's like, "Actually, you know what? I'm gonna sit down with her." And I just thought that that was a beautiful interaction. But what did you think of napkins?
Yeah, it was my favorite episode until a later one. I
Okay.
think it was the first episode of the season where I'm like, "Ooh, this is a fully painted picture and not more of a, I don't want to say slice of life, but kind of continuing on of this like grind that's been happening."
Yes,
I think this was like a full character portrait, and AO directed this episode, which
she
was
did.
fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she came out swinging on this thing. Um, yeah, I think it was great. I love the kind of, I don't know, the show makes you uncomfortable, and that's when it's the best, is when it's just so raw and uncomfortable that like it really just hits.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of makes its best moments in those, and which makes sense from a show that really got popping off from a overly chaotic kitchen with yelling and screaming and all emotions.
Yeah.
um, but even in the quieter moments and stuff like this, like you can feel just the realness of it. Everything feels so real. All the interactions are very human. But yeah, I mean, even just like making a show in the modern day, like knowing how the job market was awful during COVID and after COVID and
Oh
currently,
yeah.
um, it's like all that stuff feels so real that I forget I'm watching a TV show at certain points. Um, but yeah, it really did show a sign of Tina that was like really fantastic, and I feel like she needed a character portrait because she's like
Absolutely.
one of the best characters in the show.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, it was. I almost got baited because I thought like the little description showed up before I started the episode, and it's like Tina looks for a new opportunity. I'm like, she better not like leave the restaurant.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that was a debate and not what I thought it was.
Right.
'Cause I'm like, you can't do that. I mean, you just got Ebro back
No.
too. Like we can't.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, yeah. I thought it was phenomenal though. I think another part of this season is like it's very food focused in a way that's not direct.
Yes.
It's all about like the community surrounding it and like having that staple neighborhood restaurant where you come in and immediately feel that different kind of energy.
Mhm.
Like she just got turned down in all these big corporations and everything else that she was possibly trying, and everybody's so fake and in the corporate setting, so there's no real human emotion. And then she walks into this like hole in the wall beef restaurant, and it's like the most human thing that she's seen in the past 4 months or whatever.
Right.
So I mean, just that element to just shining throughout the whole season, come appearing here again was just really fantastic. So yeah,
Mhm.
it was a great episode.
Yeah, I would agree. I just the one line that kind of bothers me is that they're talking about her like seeking like a job and not being successful, and specifically she's talking about being someone that's older, applying to all of these entry level things because she doesn't have a degree, and she's seeing younger people get the job where she applied and has experience. She just doesn't have a degree, and she says something along the lines of, I want to look at these young people and hate them, but I like respect them because they're so hungry. And I'm like, that's a good sentiment, and that more represents what she's like now. But if we remember at the beginning of season one, she like hates Sid and like doesn't respect her because she's young. And I think, well, that kind of is at odds at like she's saying like it seems like she's sincere. This is a heart to heart she's kind of having with the stranger, but it seems like that's something that she means. Whereas like I don't know how much later, a year or two later, that's just completely reversed. And I'm like, I don't know if I completely buy that, but I'm not gonna let
Yeah,
that poison the entire episode.
no, yeah, but that's not real either. Like people do change on that. Like it's bloodthirsty out there.
Oh
Like
yeah.
if you see some new hot kid come in and like do your job a lot better than you do with like minimal training, like that is scary, especially for someone like her who was like literally dying to find anything. Like that
Mm-hmm.
that is scary.
Yeah.
And it's quick how people will switch up like that because it is, a life or death scenario with you know having employment and being able to pay bills and stuff like that.
Sure.
So I think it just speaks to like the show does a really good job of just painting the current economic like turmoil that everybody's in. Like
Mm-hmm.
everybody, it's an unspoken thing that they talk about in the show. Sometimes they bring it up, obviously, but like you get the feeling that it is very realistic to the point where it's like, yeah, their jobs are garbage, wages are low, everybody's just like walking off a cliff almost. It has that feel to it. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's true. I just in like a screenwriting sense,
in
I'm like
writing perspective, yeah.
it's just like oh, I don't know if like
Mhm.
it feels like you're writing season 3 Tina in this sentence,
Right.
whereas whatever, it doesn't matter. um but yeah, I think that is definitely a standout episode, and I think similarly standout episode is Ice Chips. um
Yes. Best episode.
I think, I'm not sure, it's probably, it's a toss up between napkins and ice chips. I think they're both nearly perfect, if not actually perfect, because that one's the one where Nat gives birth, and it's one of those terrible situations where everybody puts their phone away, and as she's going into labor, she has no
Which we knew
choice.
was gonna happen.
Of course we did. And it's like really set up. The episode before,
Yeah.
you can tell that like that's going to be the next episode,
Mhm.
just in that it's like, oh, Richie, what was it like when your wife gave birth? And I was like asking all of these like with Tina, she like asked
I'm gonna go on
Tina,
an errand by myself.
and the fact's like, can I come with you? And she's like,
Oh,
nope, I'm going to go by myself. So like we did kind of know that it was gonna happen, but I think it set up one of the best episodes, and I don't want to say completely redeemed Jamie Lee Curtis as the mom, but
not at
damn
all.
if
That's not the
like no,
point.
but like also it shows her more as a real human being,
Yeah.
that like, because the little scene we got, or not even scene, the episode that we got of her at Christmas where she drives her car through the wall. Um, it's like, oh, okay, why was Nat like so protective of her? Why? I mean, obviously she's her mom, but like, oh, like there is no redeeming characteristics here. She's just kind of awful and controlling and like explosive. Like I don't understand why anyone would have any positive feelings for her other than just familial relation. But like we got like and because she's given way more screen time in this episode and it's a more one-on-one setting, it's like, man, we're getting Jamie Lee Curtis and uh all of her aspects, all of the different things in her personality. I just was a huge fan, and also just Jamie Lee Curtis is phenomenal in it. I don't know if that's a surprise to anyone. She's a great actor.
No, yeah, she's insane.
Has been since the 70s. So it's like, okay, no wonder. But man, it is it captured a feeling that I did not know. I've never given birth before. And
What?
I know, shocking to
Cows.
many. Uh, I don't have any kids. I am a young man, and so I have never been through that process. But like, I don't know, it captured this very specific feeling in a way that like every episode does. But it's just like these two characters that like this has basically been building since Fishes. That this conflict between Nat and Nat's mom, it was going to be a thing. And it was tough at times, but it was also really beautiful in a way. Where it's just like you can tell that Jamie Lee Curtis cares and that she like she wants to be there, but she just has all of these own mental hangups. Like you can tell that she was probably abused by her mom. Cause like I think they bring up something where it's like you don't remember your grandma, or like Nat says, I don't remember grandma, and then Jamie says that that's for the better or something, and then like she starts like tearing up. So like there's probably some sort of abuse or something terrible. So she has her own hangups, and you can tell that like she wants to be a good mom and she feels awful about the things that she's done and she's trying to get better, but she's still not there. And like that is awesome. Like we aren't seeing like oftentimes we either get like, cartoonishly abusive or like gold standard best parent of all time. It's so rare we get something where it is this really gray. It's so gray where it's like, I want to root for you, but also you did drive your car into a house full of people. So it's like, I'm torn, but I'm rooting for you, kid. Uh, but I don't know. I love that episode. But go off on why you think it's your favorite.
Yeah, I think it's by far the best one here, and it's maybe like top three episodes of the show, but it's like not even in a kitchen or relating to a kitchen at all.
That's true.
Um, but I think the entirety of this season can be like summed up in that episode, and it doesn't even touch any of the characters besides two. Um, just like even if you've like been around, like if you have family like that, or even like in proximity of that, like the emotions in this episode are so real that it is extremely uncomfortable to watch.
Yes.
um, and I don't know, the way they capture that is just so insane. um, just the close-up shots, everything was just so vivid. But I mean, even just like her mom's actions, you can see it in Carmi the entire season. This just like
Yeah.
wanting to be better, but doing it in like really destructive ways and not listening and being in your own head, and this trauma of people before you and people around you, the familial like issues that we clearly saw in last season. All of that kind of bubbled up into two characters, and the way that like she had nowhere else to go to like get to the hospital and like immediately regretted it. But just like that moment in your life where you cannot do everything yourself and like you have to let someone in,
Yeah.
even if it is like your insane mother, and just like the the warring conflicts between both of them. I think just like the emotions throughout the entire episode was just like insane to watch. um and yeah, I don't know, it encapsulated like the entire emotion of the season of just like this, I want to achieve something great. I don't really know how. We're trying to push through it, and it's messy and it's sloppy and it's really uncomfortable. And there's like generations of issues running through this
Yeah.
and communication breakdowns, especially. I think that episode was the best communication through two people that I've seen in this show this
Yeah.
season because it was messy for a lot of it. Um, but yeah, I think that those interpersonal relationships is the entire point of this season, and I think that episode was like the one to show it.
Mhm.
Um, and it's interesting because we didn't even see the baby being born or like see the baby at all.
No.
But like, you don't need to. Like, that was not the important part.
No.
It was that downtime before it happened, and just like all of the nerves and stress and chaos. I don't know. It's just a really special episode, and I don't think
Mhm.
like you can completely detach it from the show, and I think a lot of it would still come through.
Yeah.
But like, even as just a character study of like that entire family through two people was crazy.
True. Yeah, the episode is called it's not called Baby or Delivery, it's called Ice
Yeah.
Chips. 'Cause
Hmm.
that yeah, the actual delivery, the actual child doesn't matter in this episode. It's just on the before, which is it's a pretty G-dang bold thing to do.
It
Like
is. Yeah.
every other show would like, take like a 2-minute thing of like, oh, the baby's born, everyone's in the hospital room, everyone's smiling, it's a big happy
It's not
day.
real life.
No, it's not real life, and also it's like that's not what the show is about. That's not
Exactly.
there is joy, there is levity in it, but it isn't like big. It isn't like theatrical. There is
No.
theatrical moments, but it isn't like a sitcom. Um, which is why I still don't get why people call it a comedy. I I there's funny bits and Maddie Matheson is hilarious in it throughout.
Yeah.
Well, the facts really in general. Even John Cena was funny.
True. I was like, oh my god, they got John Cena. They. I still like. I need Action Bronson to be the fourth fact.
Come on. They gotta get
It's
Action
it's too
Bronson.
perfect.
Yeah, he should. He's an actual chef.
Yeah, exactly. Just have him be the long lost fact from Manhattan or whatever, and he flies in for a weekend, and then you got your episode. Make it
well,
happen.
well, they do set up that there's like 6 of them or more.
Yeah,
There's
maybe
like
we'll keep seeing more.
I think we probably will. I think that that's like a pretty good way to insert like celebrities that want to be in the show. It's
Yeah,
like, yeah,
exactly.
just have them be a fact, just have them like goof around on camera for a
And like,
couple minutes.
they're three completely different people, but they make sense as a family. And
Oh
Action
yeah,
Bronson would fit in perfectly.
I think so. I think so. Yeah, yeah. But I guess it's time to talk about the finale, which has been. I think this is the most controversial part of this season. Is the finale, and I'm not going to stand here and defend a to be continued ending to a season of television, which is going to get another season. um, I don't get it. I don't get that move, but also like I think that that season finale was also pretty gene and good. I don't know. What did you think?
I thought it was fantastic. I think this is where the not meditative, but like it was very introspective for that whole finale, and I think just the way they set it up with just like chefs talking around a table for most of it and like why they do the things that they do.
Yeah.
I think for people that aren't into food or into an art or something like that where you have to really put your all into it and like people think you're crazy for doing it, they don't really understand that part of it, and I think that helped kind of show it. um I mean, even just we went to a fancy restaurant last weekend, and
We did.
just knowing that, and it's a different experience. And the passion and everything that comes through, but there's also the how do you get there, and then you have the whole Carmi arc with just like the absolute trauma that he went through to get to that position, and the battle of is it worth that? Like, because now Carmi is embodying all these negative things in the restaurant,
Yeah.
which we can see with Sid, where she has to make a really, really, really insane decision. Um,
Yeah.
and all of those kind of bubble up again, where it's like all these choices and all of this history is just coming back. Um, and the whole confrontation was really interesting. I don't think I would have wanted it to go any other way of just like, I don't remember you.
Yeah.
And like you are obsessed with what I thought and the torture that I put you through, but I made you good, so you should be thanking me. And that whole thing is just if you haven't been in a field like that, I don't think it hits as hard as like it
No.
should. Because like, I mean, I went through college and during the pandemic, and like I had to do all of that as like my last semester, and like I spent so much time and effort, and it destroyed my mental health for like 6 months, and just that whole arc of it is just incredibly powerful. Um, it's very connected, like my field and food, and we were in this house, we're in both of those, so I think it connected really heavily. The good parts of it, of just like being around your peers and like showing the fantastic parts of it and why you do it, and then the messier part of like nobody knows what they're doing, we kind of just have to put ourselves out there. um, and getting words from like someone who has done it all, it was a very almost therapeutic experience, even though there is still a lot of like mixed emotions going on in it.
Mhm.
And I think Sydney is, I feel like she is the protagonist of this whole show.
Oh yeah.
We have these crazy families, and she kind of just gets thrust into it, and she's like, "Is this the best thing for me or not?" Like
Mm.
just all the conversations at that table and just what's her going through her mind the whole time is like the biggest thing from this one, I think. But yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I don't really mind the to be continued because like the episode itself was fantastic. I didn't
Oh yeah.
end the season like needing to know what happened next. I am content with like the picture they painted this season. It didn't need to be anything too flashy. The emotions and like the very intricate nature of like grind culture and how hard people need to work for this kind of stuff, it came through, and the character studies were fantastic. So I I'm not mad that there's a to be continued. There's a lot worse to be continued cliffhangers.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's worse ways to end a show or a
Yeah,
season. Like Ozark. Gunshot cut to black is
correct.
probably
Yep,
the worst way that you
horrible.
can end anything. Um, no, I'm not like pissed. I'm just like, oh,
Mhm,
that's a decision. It's just like, okay. I don't know if like
absolutely.
a giant title card that says to be continued.
Yeah, you didn't need to spell it out. We kind of knew.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I get it. But what I do really appreciate about the last season, the last episode, is its ambiguity, where it is like a lot of we're getting a lot of flashbacks because Carmi is eyeing down Joel McHale, which I think is
hmm
it's hilarious that this is the guy from Community who's set up to be this big horrible guy, but he's eyeing down Joel McHale and he's getting flashbacks, and I think there's moments where it's unclear whether or not it's Sydney having flashbacks to conversations at the bear or if it's Carmi.
hmm
Like, is
Yep.
Carmi recognizing that he is continuing this cycle on Sid and everyone else in the restaurant? Or is Sid connecting all of these stories that they're like people are saying, these horror stories of the restaurant at this table? And is she saying, like, oh, I am recognizing that this is a toxic place for me to be in
hmm
because of these things? And I think that that's kind of where, like, that's what gets me excited about season four is that it's like, what
Absolutely.
is it? There's a lot of like questions. And it isn't like the obvious, oh, what's going to happen to the restaurant? It's like, what's going to happen to these characters?
hmm
Because, uh, I'm like kind of torn where I'm like, yeah, Sid probably should get out of there. Honestly,
Oh
like
yeah.
it's horrible for her, but also like, the TV sap in me is like, well, I kind of want them to all be at the restaurant and have a big happy ending at the end. Then everything will
If
work
there
out
even
and it'll
is
be
one.
perfect.
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. That's what the to be continued's all about.
hmm
Um, but and also it's just like that this place means so much to her. Like that's the whole reason that she's there. Like it's a very special place for her and her dad. So like having it be a place that's like working and running well, like that's kind of an arc I'd like to see. Well, I mean, it's an arc I'd like to see for everybody. Um, but I understand that this show is very concerned with realism and lifelike storytelling, and that's fine if you want to have a sad ending like real life, but that's not like why I like TV. Because I don't know. I like having fun and not being depressed. So I don't know. That's not the purpose of this show. But I would like a happy ending. But I guess that's season 3. Very overall, really well done.
Very good.
Has very, very good episodes. I would say it's probably better than season 1, but not as good as season 2. That's probably where I'll rank it.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think a lot of
I think season 3 being this will make season 4 incredible, and
yes.
for the people that want that flash.
Yeah, yeah. I'm interested to see if people will stick around because I think that
Hmm.
this season, for whatever reason, really turned people off. I've been seeing a lot of stuff on Twitter being like, "Oh, so you guys finally realized that the bear was bad. I realized it from season 1." And I'm like, "Okay,
Oh,
good for
did you?
you."
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I don't think
Um,
this is a show that should have mass appeal though either. Like it's
well,
not
yeah.
the biggest topic range in the world. Like
No,
this is very niche.
it's niche, but it isn't like it's not too in depth of like restaurant
No.
stuff. If it was that in depth, I wouldn't know anything about it. Like
Right.
the stuff that like the restaurant is just a setting. It's a setting
Hmm.
for like a really really great, I guess maybe found family drama, I guess would be the
I
category.
suppose. Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't care anything about sports. I don't know anything about it. Hell, I don't know anything about cricket. And Lagan is one of the best movies of all time because there's just so much surrounding sports and sports movies. Um, and a lot of that is just like the drama and there's fun arcs. And like I think that's
Yeah.
why so many people resonate with this show. And also the star power. Everybody loves Jeremy Allen White
Hmm.
and Jamie Lee Curtis, I guess, even though she's only in a couple episodes. Everyone loves
Yeah.
Bob Odenkirk.
Of course. My favorite.
Um,
But I think it's gonna happen to a show when you take this angle where it's more focused on character study in a more, I don't want to say mundane way, but it's not, insane kitchen
right.
like craziness and yelling fights and all these things. Like people like that because it gets their attention. Uh,
Yeah.
this one felt a lot more ambient in just a way that like it felt like just kind of everyday life with a lot of these great stories sprinkled in, and
Mhm.
it was not the most flashy, but if you're sitting down and like letting it kind of do what it's supposed to do, it's going to hit as hard as the other seasons.
Yeah.
But I think naturally there will be a fall off in attention because not everybody's wanting that with their TV,
Well,
so
sure.
I think it's natural.
That's fine. That's fine. And I think this next one's probably going to be the last one, right? Like I can't
I kind
see
of hope
this
so.
show going
I
for more than one
Yeah,
more.
I do hope it ends next season. I think
Yeah.
it's a good point.
I think so too. And I'm interested to see what the Storers, I think that's their last name, Christopher Storer, and I think his
Hmm.
wife also does some work on it. So I would like to see what he does next because he has been. This is a very interesting uh, show, and I'd like to see what he does after
Refreshing.
this. Yeah. So that's the Bear season 3. Check it out. We just spoiled the entire thing, but uh, it's still worth a watch, I guess. We didn't go through every episode, and we aren't able to capture the feeling of it.
Oh,
It's a very it's one where like sometimes you get a show spoiled and it's like, oh well, now there's really no reason to watch it. But I think even with the spoilers there's enough like atmosphere and
hmm.
the just the vibe of it is crazy and unlike any other show I've seen. Um, so I think that even that is exhilarating. So if you're into that, check it out. But that's it. That's it for the bear. I guess we'll move on to monkey time. We talked about a bear, and now it's time to talk about a monkey.
Yes, sir.
Yes. This week, Iron Monkey. And this movie's interesting because there's no monkey in it.
Great.
I know, I know. Very disappointing. Well, technically, there's a baboon in one shot, but it has nothing to do with the main character. It's mostly there as a goof, and I guess I'll talk about it a little later. I should probably set up what the movie's about, or maybe let's zoom out even more. What is Iron Monkey? Iron Monkey is a Hong Kong kung fu movie from the early 90s, I think produced by Quentin Tarantino, and uh, fight choreography done by the same dude that did The Matrix and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. If you know anything about action movies, what I just said was like a golden buzzer, like you know stuff's going off. Because first of all, Hong Kong action movies slap really hard. I would say probably especially before this era, like I think like 36 Chamber of Shaolin, or like any Jackie Chan or Bruce Lee movie that was made in Hong Kong slaps, because they get kung fu and how to capture it very well on camera. And then you get the great fight choreography in both of those movies, and you get the co-sign by Tarantino. I mean, that's a win-win-win. Um, and this is like my favorite. Like this is kind of like what I'm not going to talk about Tarantino a whole lot because he doesn't have a whole lot to do with this movie. I think he just was like he played a part in getting it an international release, at least a release in North America, which unfortunately did come with some like caveats or censorship. I think it did like get recut to like get all of the like gore out. Like there's a bunch of like different changes. Um the and I think it like does some stuff that I don't quite agree with. But I guess we'll get to it a little later. Um but like this is kind of the arc I hope that Tarantino takes after he stops making movies. If he does stop making, I'm pretty sure he will, but I'm just gonna throw that out there just in case he doesn't. I really hope that he like starts propping up like and getting like international releases for movies that may not otherwise get it. I realize that may be more of a thing back in the day, like in the 90s or even before then. Whereas I feel like now stuff gets international releases pretty often. But I think like him finding smaller filmmakers and propping their stuff up is a pretty, I don't know, like a really good thing. I think he did that with Bong Joon Ho, at least played a part in him getting some acclaim here in America. Um, so that's kind of what I hope he does for the future. And I'm excited that this thing did get a North American release because it's really G dang good. It's basically what would happen if Robin Hood was in, I don't even know what dynasty of China. Let's just say ancient China Robin Hood. Uh, that might not sound super exciting at first because we've seen Robin Hood like 1,000 times. But I think that if this is like if we're accepting this into the canon of Robin Hood, I think that it's one of the better ones, honestly, because it kind of captures what makes like early Robin Hood great, and that it's like a fun swashbuckling adventure, but of course set in a completely different setting. Um, it's I don't know. It's kind of hard to like talk about this movie seriously because it is such a goof. The tone is not serious at all. It's just like, oh, there's a cartoonishly evil governor that hoards gold and wealth from peasants that are dying from the plague. And there is a, I guess, kind of, he dresses like a ninja, but that's Japanese. So I don't, he's like a sneaky warrior who is, I guess, he calls himself the Iron Monkey. So my prediction last week of it being a Marvel movie turned out not to be true, unfortunately, because I love Marvel movies. Um, but the unfortunately, uh, yeah, or I guess maybe fortunately, it's not a Marvel movie and it's in fact a Robin Hood film. But it's just like there's this doctor who's like cartoonishly good, and he helps everybody. He makes sure that poor people don't have to pay for his services and that rich people do have to pay for his services, and he does it by being like, "Oh, well, I'm giving you better medicine, and well, if you want the free stuff, I can give you the free stuff." And the rich people are like, "No, actually, I want the good stuff because I can pay for it. I'm good for it. I need status and stuff." It's actually a biting critique of the higher class in society. Um, that's why I go to this movie, and not for really fun kung fu action. But basically, it's him as the Iron Monkey, and then this dude comes to town with his son, and he's super good at kung fu. So all of the guards think that he is the Iron Monkey. So they kidnap him and his son, and a bunch of other civilians. And one of the civilians just so happens to have a baboon on a leash. So yeah, I told you I'd bring it up. There is a monkey, but the monkey doesn't really do anything. It's just there for, I guess, maybe interesting set dressing. So, but not enough.
Specifically for this marathon.
Yeah, well, it does count. There's a monkey in the movie,
True.
and there was a monkey in 12 Monkeys, but it was just in like one shot. But it's in the same category. Spoiler alert: this movie gets 0 out of 10 monkey points because there's no monkeys. Well, there's basically no monkeys in it. But the governor kidnaps the dude's son and is like, "Hey, you must capture the Iron Monkey and bring him to me. Otherwise, I'm not going to let your son go, and I'm not going to feed him either." So it's basically a race against the clock. Otherwise, this kid is going to starve to death. Which sounds kind of serious for a goofy kung fu movie, but it works. It works. And eventually they do break the kid out, and like at any point they could leave, but the guy who's hunting the Iron Monkey's like, "No, we can't. We have to capture the Iron Monkey because then the government, like not the government, but the governor is going to send people after us, even though this is southern China, aka where Hong Kong is, and we live in northern China, which I don't know if you know this, China is a giant country. So I think that
Right.
would be pretty dang hard to send a bunch of people all the way up to northern China to find the guy. But whatever. We need the movie to happen. But ultimately, the dude and the Iron Monkey team up to kill the uh, the governor, and then like the emperor's bodyguard who shows up and is also comically evil. He's a Shaolin monk that killed a bunch of other Shaolin monks and now uses the, the Shaolin ways for evil. Probably a nice little nod to the Wu Tang album, which would have came out like 5 years before this movie came out. I have to assume they're doing a nod to the Wu Tang album and not the actual movie, the 36th Chamber of Shaolin. I think it's safe to assume that. Um,
Of course.
so yeah, that's they team up and then they win, and that's the movie Iron Monkey. But uh, I need to bring up that all of the action sequences slap really hard, whereas I didn't really like the action in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, because like all of it was like people jumping around on wires and occasionally like swinging swords or kicking each other. Like it didn't feel like grounded, which is like when it comes to action movies, that's what I love. That's why like The Raid Redemption is like one of my favorite movies. And also kind of Fury Road, but that's a different kind of grounded. That's like grounded surrealism, if that is even a thing. It probably isn't, but I'll say it is. Um, but the action here, there is those kind of Wuxian elements, I guess if that's a word. I know Wuxia is a genre of like Chinese, like historical kung fu slash karate movies, which I don't really vibe with. But there are those elements where like people can like jump from the ground to like the top of a building and like nothing. And basically everybody is like a superhero and has like super strength and super dexterity and can like hold themselves off of like the little curved up part of like a pagoda by just like a couple fingers and can like perfectly hold themselves like horizontal, like planking. Like people are just like insanely strong and it's like unbelievable, but also that's what makes it kind of awesome. And that it's just like, okay, this is just, you just have to completely suspend your disbelief and be like, okay, this is just kind of fun. Um, which does raise a very important question, and that why can I kind of get down with it when it's live action and not when it's anime? And maybe that's something that I'm going to have to wrestle within myself over many moons. But not right now. I'm just going to say that Iron Monkey was a blast and that I highly recommend it to anyone that is listening to this program. I actually think there's a lot of crossover between the bear and Iron Monkey.
Absolutely.
I don't think there is, but I just want more people to watch this movie. I will say I started watching this movie on one of the free streaming services. I don't even remember which one it was, and the only option was a dub. And at first, I was like, "Oh no, is this just like a thing with the North American release that they like? There's a dub." And no, because I rented it and there was subs. So I don't know. The only reason I might have stuck with the dub, but I think it was like 3 people that were doing the entire cast. I was like, oh, this is horrible. So I had to switch. Um, but what I will say about the North American release, and then we'll move it on. I don't think we're going to talk about the 2 films that we watched this weekend.
I
Um,
don't think we need.
because we watched Suburban Sasquatch and The Instructor, which are both very bad movies. Um, so I don't know if I have a whole lot to say, but watch them. They're very fun. I would say
They
they
were
were
fun.
they were good. They were good
Yeah,
in like a
they were
bad way.
entertaining.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it wasn't like a Neil Breen movie. Some of those are
No.
like torturous. Um, there are some other ones. We didn't really like Alien Private Eye. That one
Yeah.
was not as successful.
Yeah.
Um, but these two were pretty good. But I guess so. We won't talk about the ones that we watched, even though they were nice. But what I want to talk about a little bit is the North American release, because what I really respected about this movie is that Iron Monkey has an assistant and she's a lady. And right, you're thinking to yourself, oh, well, this is going to be a movie where they fall in love or they're already romantically interested in each other and they're going to fall in love in the end. And throughout the entire movie, there's like no romance between them. They are platonic and they run the clinic together and they also like are kind of like she's maybe like his sidekick throughout the entire movie. And it's like never hinted that they are going to fall in love. And I'm like, that's awesome. I love that like she is just another strong character in this setting that just wants to do good. And she isn't just a lazy love interest. And I was very impressed. And then the movie ends and it cuts to black and it's just like, oh, here's what happens to everybody. And it's just like, oh, the Iron Monkey and the lady fall in love and they are married now and have kids and a family. And the boy grows up to be a great hero. And I'm like, oh, that's so lame. So I don't know if that is it. It feels like that would be in the North American release, and that it's like, oh, we have to basically give them a case of like the Red Letter Media calls it giving them a case of the not gays, where it's like a just huge, distinct thing that they throw in, where it's like, oh, two people can't be like not interested in each other, otherwise they're gonna think that the guy is gay, and that's gonna throw some red flags for people. So we have to basically be like, oh, he likes women. he likes women. It's a buddy cop movie, but they aren't seeing each other romantically because that would be messed up because we don't like gay people. And so I think that's kind of what happened here at the end, where it's like, oh, Iron Monkey's not gay. He actually falls in love with the assistant, even though there's no hinting of that throughout the entire movie. But that was like, once that happened, I'm like, oh, that sucks. But I don't know if that is specifically to North America or if that was in the Hong Kong release. I'm not sure. But it seems like something that would be in the North American release, especially in the early 90s where we're still kind of getting over the like huge conservative wave of the 80s. That's just kind of what it seems like to me. But maybe it isn't. I don't know. But that's my review of Iron Monkey. Very, very good. Check it out. Now, watch the dub. I don't care. You can't dub cool kung fu. And that's all that matters in this film. So I think that's it. That's all I have. I'm going to throw it on over to Babby for his segment of the show.
Yay! I don't have a lot. I got messed up, so we had a busy schedule. I did not get to listen to a lot of the stuff that came out this week, so I will be doing it next
Well,
week.
tell me you listened
But
to Eminem.
I did not. That
What?
was last on my list, and I didn't even get to the first on my list. So,
Oh, no.
um, but next week I will talk about Action Bronson for sure. I just did not get to that. But we still got some news, some stuff. There was also a Common and Pete Rock album that came out,
Oh,
and
I
it's
thought
getting really
Common
good
was done.
reviews. I thought so too. His last album was, I guess it was 2021. A lot of his recent work hasn't been too significant. It's been kind of nice, but like, this one is getting some pretty good reception. So I might check that out. I am a fan of Common.
Yeah, he's good.
One of my favorite conscious rappers from that era.
Yeah,
Yeah, I will check that out. We also just did Claro. That'll be on the channel this week once I
very,
finish
very
that.
good.
It's fantastic. Yeah, when it comes to stuff that came out, we got a new JPEG Mafia song.
Oh,
Sin Miedo. Don't know what that means.
okay.
Latin or something. Um, it's pretty good. It, I'm interested to see how this album's going to sound. I did this definitely fits the uh, vibe that the other single had. Don't Rely on Other Men. They both have this kind of like there's a rock influence to it. It's still very much Peggy, glitchy, all over the place, weirdo. But there's been guitar solos and guitar parts in both songs now. I like it. It's very kind of grungy and a little bit like it's not very clean, which is cool. I'm not seeing like a lot of like crazy synths or anything here. It seems definitely a little bit more rock centric, which is cool. I'm excited to see. Um, I don't know. There still isn't anything like too insane from these two singles. I think it's going to work really well within the record. Um, but I guess we'll just wait and see when that full thing comes out. I don't think we have a release date for it yet. So,
Hmm.
yeah, that's Peggy. Um, Today, Chatpile announced their new record, Cool World.
Hmm.
Comes out October 11th. Very excited. Um, yeah, still love God's Country. That one's fantastic. This one's got 10 tracks. Should be about the same thing. They released the first single, I Am Dog Now. Um, is nasty. It's disgusting. I like it. It's not as explosive as a lot of the tracks on God's Country, but I think in terms of setting a vibe for what this record is going to be, I am definitely into it. It's heavy. It's still incredibly sludgy, which I really like. Um, yeah, this one has competition because we had that Knocked Loose album this year that was phenomenal, um, and this is kind of within the same realm. I would say a little bit more uh, leaning into like the sludgy side of metal, but they're both like bands that just go ridiculously hard. So I'm very excited to see how this turns out. But yeah, very nice. Then we got what do we got. This one was crazy. Came out of nowhere. Sampha and Lil Sims.
Oh yeah, I saw
Satellite
that.
Business 2.0, angelic, heavenly. Um, it's phenomenal. It's 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 as good as the original version. It's just different. The original version is fantastic as well, but it's definitely a little bit different than the original. Kind of reworked with Little Sims in the mix, and it works really, really well. I feel like this is a no-brainer when you like want to put two artists together and make a really good collab song. Like this is a cheat code. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, check that out for sure. Um, yeah, what else we got? I think Gambino released another single for the record, but that comes out this week, so I'm not gonna listen to the single. I'm just gonna wait for the record.
Yeah.
Um, so we will talk about that next week. I think we didn't get a track list, but there's like 17 tracks, I think. So it's gonna be a long boy, I think, which
Yeah,
is
I
good.
think so.
I still hope it's like a fully fleshed out album, but I guess we'll find out soon. Um, what else we got? I got a new Oxa song, which is the new experimental jazz outfit out of Backwoods. They got a new single featuring Billy Woods. It is really great. It's insane. It's crazy. I didn't know how the rapping features were going to be approached on this upcoming record because they have Billy Woods on one, they have Lucid on one, and they have Cavalier on one, I believe. But works really well. I think Billy Woods does fantastic on this. He's rapped on jazz beats before. Um, this is more pure jazz rather than an instrumental, mainly focused on jazz. But the way he like floats in and out of these pockets is really, really, really nice. He's syncopating with the jazz instrumentation still, even like it's super chaotic, but he's making it work really well. And yeah, it works. It's pretty good track. I'm excited for this record. But the two singles so far have been absolutely crazy. Um, but yeah, I am excited for that. What else we got? I think that was a majority of things.
Mm,
Yeah, this week we got Gambino. Week after we got Porter Robinson, which we'll be doing on the channel, of course.
of course.
Um, I think that was it that I listened to this week. Didn't do any new records. Didn't do any new deep dive stuff. Just been trying to engross myself as much as possible with all these things as I start making the video. Um, but yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Claro's been kind of taking over a little bit in my headphones.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, I think so. Claro's, yeah, just kind of yeah. It's been all I've been listening to. It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because we recorded it listening through a sound bar, which was pretty good. It wasn't the worst way we could have experienced it, but going back and listening to it in headphones has just been great.
Actually, I
It's
have not had the chance to do that in my good headphones yet.
oh, okay. Well,
I'm very excited.
you're in for a
Title
treat.
has the max quality lossless version too, so
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna dive into that.
Yeah, that'll be good. So it's very good record. If you have not checked it out, you gotta.
You gotta,
Yeah. Claro is probably up next, as the kids say.
as the kids say.
As if she was not up next a while ago.
Yeah. Oh, we got Denzel Curry this week too.
Oh, did that whole album come out?
Don't forget that. It'll come out this Friday.
Oh, okay.
I think he's still dropping singles, but
Still?
I'm just gonna wait. Yeah, he did the thing where I'm like, I'm gonna drop a single the week the album comes out,
Oh,
which doesn't really matter. It's more of like a tape, I think. Anyways, so
yeah.
talk about that next week too.
Sweet. Well, then I guess that's it. Um, what is next week in the Monkey Marathon? Oh,
Ooh.
yes. Next week we are watching Shakma. If you don't know what that is the movie about a baboon that hunts down a bunch of people in a lab and kills them all. So
Yay!
this one's guaranteed to at least have 4 monkey points.
That's good.
I would say it.
We need a big time monkey point
I
thing
know
eventually here.
King Kong is the highest with 5, but we have to remember that most of it was a lady being very uncomfortably romanced with on a boat. So
Mm-hmm.
not quite the big monkey smash you might expect from King Kong. But I think Shakma. I'm looking at the lineup, and I think Shakma might be the most monkey points. But also Space Chimps is going to be closing this, and I feel like
That's
that
true.
also
It
probably is
might win
going to
it.
have high monkey points because I can't imagine there being many scenes without a monkey in Space Chimps.
Yeah. It might be the worst movie, but it might have the best monkey score.
I don't know. I don't think it's going to be worse than The Ape. That might be one
Okay,
of the worst movies I've ever seen in my whole life.
that's fair.
So yeah, it's funny, I've been doing this monkey thing. I watched all the Planet of the Apes movies, watching all these monkey movies. I found 3 movies that I gave half stars out of like
Hmm.
15. So that I don't know what that says. Maybe monkey movies aren't very good. Although maybe
There's some untapped potential.
yeah, maybe I shouldn't be saying this before the marathon concludes because maybe there's going
That's
to be
true.
something that really takes my breath away. But for some reason, I don't think it's going to be Bedtime for Bonzo.
Got him.
I just don't think that that's going to happen. But maybe it will. And maybe that's my bad for not picking good movies with monkeys in it. But how was I supposed to know? I haven't seen them yet.
I haven't watched them.
So, sorry. Bye.